that's an excellent question. I think it gets back to the question of advocacy versus scholarship. And I think psychology has always prided itself in not being biased, in quotation marks. And I've written some papers on this, but psychology basically doesn't recognize its own bias. Or alternatively, they don't acknowledge that their bias is in fact a bias, but rather a given. And so they would argue that feminism is a bias, and it's a bias against men. And that's why they feel that, research should be scientific. And of course, we all know that no scientific research is totally unbiased, that when you state your hypothesis, you're stating bias. But because of psychology's hang-up, and I call it physics envy, and their hang-up on being scientific, they discredit the feminist perspective. And they say, well, it's not just the feminist perspective. It's any perspective that doesn't see the data objectively. And that's part of it. That's not a York thing. That's a discipline thing. And in fact, I've seen women not be promoted because they were known as feminist psychologists, not only in Canada but other parts of the world. They were seen as a threat to the establishment. The word feminism is very scary to some people, to women as well as men. To men, it's hairy broads that want to take over the world, ball breakers. And to women, it's, oh, she's just a lesbian. So, I mean, it's the word feminism, it's had a lot of negative connotations. So the majority of women today don't want to be called feminists, although they believe in equality, they believe in equal rights for men and women, they believe, all of that, but just don't call them feminists.
So, sorry, can I just, so just as after having said that, what kind of advice would you give to a young feminist psychologist who's doing her research in feminist psychology, for example?
As she tries to make her way through the psychology
Right.
kind of system, yeah.
I hope you're strong, because you will be constantly called on to defend yourself. Now, you can go two ways. You can try to get your degree based on your views, or you can wait until you get your degree and then express your views. What I would worry about is to what extent it's going to slow you down or turn people against you because of their suspiciousness of your lack of scientific rigor. So that's the only advice I would give you, to be certain of what you're doing. I don't think things have changed that much over the years, this suspicion of feminism. Not so much in other departments, but in psychology. And then, to be the devil's advocate, you might say, well, I guess any bias in psychology that detracts from the scientific would be regarded with suspicion. But I don't have any belief that. I think feminism in particular is very suspect. And I've experienced it in many, many ways. I've sent articles in where I've used words, and I've had papers rejected because I used feminist jargon. That was far beyond York University. It's part of our discipline, sort of a conservative, suspicious attitude that, you have to be a scientist through and through, a male scientist.
Right, a particular kind of science,
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
Yeah.